Was Blaine DeBeers misunderstood or a villain all along? Welcome to another character analysis by Geek Vibes Nation. I'm your host, Tia, and today I will be diving into one of my favorite characters from one of my favorite shows. That would be Blaine DeBeers from the CW show iZombie, starring Rose McIver. You may have heard of Rose McIver in a few different things, including the current CBS show called Ghosts. But what I know her mostly from is iZombie. And iZombie has ended for a few years now. It ran for 5 seasons on the CW. And in all honesty, I started the show. Well, first of all, I remember when the not the first episode, I remember when the first season came out on the CW, and the name was a little off-putting for me. So I did not give it a chance during its first season, but I am happy that once it hit Netflix, I had nothing else to watch and I decided to give it a try. Thankfully, I did because it became one of my favorite shows. I watched it every week that it premiered. I watched it once the seasons would hit Netflix. I all around was and still am such a fan of this show. I love to call the fandom the tiny but mighty fandom. And I absolutely loved it. And one of the main characters in the show was Blaine. He was introduced in the first season as the bad guy and always kind of was the bad guy, although certainly in between seasons, say seasons 2 through 4, he was more in an area of gray. I want to say that due to the phenomenal way that David Anders portrayed Blaine, he was kept around. I feel that if it was a different actor playing the character differently, that it would have maybe just been a one and done, but it almost feels like at times the writers were just specifically writing content to keep him in. And I'm more than happy about that. I feel like the character Blaine really got expanded. He went from being this character who was just honestly a low life in the first season, doing really horrific things to in order to benefit himself financially, and we see in some seasons that the main character, Liv, played by Rose McIver, had to go to Blaine a few times for help. We see Blaine strike up a relationship with Liv's best friend, Peyton, at one point. And there was legitimately a time where I thought that Blaine was just a misunderstood person, which sounds like such a apologetic take, and I am not ashamed to say that. This is coming from the person that, after watching the first Thor movie, completely was ready to forgive Loki for all the atrocities he did. So, does not surprise me at all that that's the stance I took with Blaine. But with Blaine, we learn a lot about his character. I wanted to say that I first felt that the other characters were really villainizing him and not giving him the opportunity to perhaps grow when in season 1, the character Blaine tells Liv that he does legitimately want to leave his drug peddling days behind him, that becoming a zombie has put life into perspective for him, and that he does feel alone at times, and that he is having to acquire brains in a very unsavory way as opposed to Liv, who essentially gets takeout every day. But we see at one point that Blaine was going to meet with Liv in good faith, and Blaine's old running buddies catch up to him. And this was not in the fans' perspective, well, the audience perspective, we're watching and we see him not want to be around them, that he knows that he's done with that and he wants to wait for Liv. But in Liv's mind, when she sees it, she sees Blaine up to no good, back with his old drug running buddies, and kind of decides there and then that this man is not worth giving her, time to. It's a bad look prospectively and kind of does nothing good to their relationship throughout the series. After that, we see Blaine having to take extensive measures in his hands. He starts a business where he's essentially killing people just to acquire their brains so that he can then sell them. He's making new zombies so that he can get richer. And of course, as an apologetic fan, I sit there and go, well, would he have to have done any of that if perhaps Liv was willing to hear him out a little and not jump to conclusions that he was back to being a scumbag? So, of course, that I was like, all right, apologetic. My next apologetic take on Blaine was the one where, throughout the season, and obviously, I guess I should have said that this whole thing was going to contain spoilers, but I figured considering the show has been finalized for the past, I want to say 4 years or so, maybe even a little longer. I think it's good to talk about spoilers. I think I'm in the clear, but throughout the series, one of the main characters, Ravi, played by Rahul Kohli, um, which calls it, has been looking for a cure for Liv for, her being a zombie. And during the events of season one's finale, Blaine is injected with the cure, becomes human, then becomes zombie again, then becomes human. And at some point, one of the bad batches makes him lose his memories. And well, we think it makes him lose his memories. You actually do find out that it is all a ruse. He, quickly regained his memories, but he decided to kind of take advantage of it so that he could make a better life for himself. He does legitimately start caring for Peyton. He does legitimately want to kind of walk away from the person that he was. You find out multiple different things. And again, this could be apologetic. It is a trope. He has daddy issues and he was, you find out, horribly abused by his babysitter growing up. And, these are things that I feel like if it's like a nature versus nurture, because his father was not a good person either. If you had him where maybe he had people around him who are more willing to be his friend and not just want something devious out of him, that maybe he could have changed. Again, he really seemed to legitimately care about Peyton. And while I do not blame Peyton at all for wanting to walk away after essentially finding out that he was lying about his amnesia, I do see it as Blaine consistently throughout the series was trying to make a better person for himself, but because of the way he went about it and the way he was, it was misconstrued in a different way and pretty much shut off by anyone who was around him. His past actions spoke louder for everyone, and they just thought they could not trust this guy. Obviously, we see in season five him sort of return back to being the bad guy that he was in season one. And I did find that kind of refreshing because there was at one point, I want to say at the end of season three, maybe even season four, that I thought, maybe they are just straggling Blaine here a little too much to the point where we almost don't need him around. And that kind of made me really sad to say because he was my favorite character, but it just seemed like the writing for him just didn't know what to do with him when they weren't putting him in the role as a villain. So I did appreciate him kind of going back to season one Blaine back in season five. But it still sat there, and I was like, it would have been so interesting to really see him and Liv team up. Again, we saw a few times where they had to assist each other, but I don't know. I sit there and I go, it's like a catch 22 for me, right? I wanted this character to be redeemed and I wanted this character to be seen as a redeeming character, but at the same time I enjoyed him becoming completely bad again. So the end of the series, and for those who don't know, iZombie was one of those shows that, again, I think was overlooked by the network because at the time the CW was just flooded with DC projects, right? Even though iZombie technically was a DC project, but you had the Flash, Arrow, this, and that, all these offshoots in the Arrowverse that made up their entire schedule. Then almost felt like anything else would not stand. I want to say after, so season one was very successful, season two was successful, so much so that they added more episodes to the season. And then after that, it's like we had to continue waiting longer than other shows for a renewal. Season three was happening and all the other CW shows were being renewed. And it was like last minute, okay, iZombie renewed for a fourth season. Same thing happened once we got to fourth season. All, and by the way, if you guys can hear that, my one of my cats is just meowing so loudly. Hang on, I'll have to see what he wants. You all right, buddy? Okay, cool. Uh, and then we got into the fourth season of iZombie, and same thing. All of these shows were getting renewed, and for us iZombie fans, we were like, "Oh my God, what's happening? Are they going to cancel it?" And it honestly wouldn't surprise me because I feel like every single show that I enjoy, um, oh my God, he's so loud. He's literally meowing because my boyfriend just left for work and he just like misses him terribly. But season four was around and finally it felt like in the last moment they renewed it for a fifth season and which was great. And then I want to say a couple of days later, it was announced that that fifth season was going to be the last season. And I do not think that the writers were prepared for that. And if you watch season five, you could admit that a lot of things were rushed in season five because the writers need to get to their plan essentially. And I don't blame them. They didn't want the fans to be left with such an open-ended ending. They wanted some sort of satisfactory conclusion, but it Blaine's character had to quickly go from being essentially a like morally ambiguous character to bad guy that you wanted to take down. I mean, it kind of made sense because it kind of felt like with everyone, it was like, okay, we wanted to take him down in season one, and then we had all this other stuff to contend with. And now that that stuff is kind of gone, we have to go back to the objective of taking down Blaine because he cannot be left unanswered for his crimes. And I get that. So season five ended with Blaine not getting killed, but him being tossed into a well that would be essentially impossible for him to climb out of. But because he's a zombie, he wouldn't die. But because he wouldn't be able to be fed, that means that he would turn into a George Romero zombie, which was iZombie's version of just a mindless ravaging zombie. So depending on how long, say, if they wanted to continue the story, and I only say that because David Anders and Raul Coley have been posting iZombie photos on Instagram, and it's gotten fans speculating, and obviously it's just speculation, but people are like, what's happening? And I'm sitting there going, are we going to be seeing an iZombie reboot? If we do, um, I wonder how far in the future it would be because if we saw Blaine again, would he be normal Blaine or would he be George Romero Blaine? And if he was, then you really couldn't have him around because many characters in the show who turned to that point had to be put down because there is no going back for them once their state decays to that point. But anyway, I don't know if I necessarily reached a conclusion in this character analysis, whether I think that he was misunderstood or truly a villain, because I think he was both. It depends on the season and it depends where you thought the writers wanted to go. I think that maybe they could have written it to where he did turn himself around and, maybe paid for his crimes, but ended up being a better person because there were many times where it looked like he was really craving that. He did not want to be despised, he wanted to be liked. And maybe you could have gotten him there with maybe the character Liv being a little bit more sympathetic and open to that. Or at the same time, maybe it was better off that he remained a villain because he did it so well. It was kind of like I don't know, I wouldn't compare him to someone like Moriarty from the Sherlock series. And I guess the closest maybe you can compare him to Loki from the MCU, but it's one of those things where you're like, I love him as a villain, but ooh, I can save him. And you like that, but then you're like, I do kind of miss the times where he was just a plain bad guy. So I would love to hear all of your thoughts. I know again it's been years since iZombie has come out, but watching the show Ghost, seeing Rose McIver, and just kind of revisiting iZombie has just really brought back my love for the show and just how amazing it is, the writing, the acting, and for a show that was on CW that, at times the CW isn't known for the best budget, and obviously has to remain a little bit more family friendly due to it being a family friendly channel. I thought they did a spectacular I thought they did spectacularly in their show. Honestly, the execution of it was just mwah, perfect. But let me know what you thought of iZombie. Let me know what you thought of Blaine, where you would have liked his character to go, or if you are happy with where his character ended up, and if there was ever a revival of the show, where would you like it to go? Please make sure you are subscribed. Our channel is growing ever the more. I don't know if that's what our channel is really growing, and it's beautiful to watch. So please make sure that you are subscribed. You subscribe if you are not. Please give this episode a thumbs up and let me know who else you'd like me to analyze, because honestly this has become one of my favorite my favorite series to do, because it feels so relaxed and as if I could just really get what's on my mind off my mind. So I'll stop talking now, but thank you again everyone and hope you have a great day. Again, this is Tia for Geek Vibes Nation, and I'll see you on the next character analysis. Bye.